You can buy a private island for less than a penthouse in Manhattan. Genuinely, right now there are private islands listed for $300,000. Some go for less than a nice house in Austin. There's one in Nova Scotia that sold for the price of a used Toyota Camry fleet. So the pitch writes itself: own your own kingdom, no HOA, no neighbors, for less than a mortgage on a suburban colonial. Here's the part they leave out of the pitch. The purchase price is the cheapest part of owning a private island. Not the biggest cost, not the scariest cost, the cheapest. That $300,000 sticker isn't the top of the mountain, it's base camp. And most buyers don't find that out until they're a year in, staring at invoices they didn't know existed. Because here's the number that changes everything. Owning a private island runs $84,000 to $310,000 a year, just in taxes, insurance, maintenance, staff, and transport. Every single year. And that's the modest end. At the luxury tier, owners are spending $500,000 or more annually just to keep the lights on and the vegetation from eating the house. That's the paradox. You buy the island for less than a house. Then you spend more than the house cost, every year forever, just to keep it standing. Think about that ratio for a second. A $300,000 island with $150,000 in annual carrying costs isn't a $300,000 purchase. It's a $300,000 down payment on a business you now have to run, whether you want to or not, from a location that's actively trying to reclaim itself. And it will. If nobody's on that island, the tropics don't wait politely for your next visit. Vegetation reclaims structures fast. We're talking a roof disappearing under growth in a couple of seasons. So the island you fell in love with in the drone footage needs a caretaker just to look the way it looked when you bought it. That's not optional. That's the baseline cost of the fantasy staying photogenic. So here's the question this video actually answers, because it's not, can you afford to buy one? Almost anyone reading this could afford to buy one. It's this. Why does an asset that costs $300,000 to acquire end up costing more than that every single year to keep? What is it about a ring of sand surrounded by water that makes a house-sized purchase behave like a small hotel's operating budget? Because once you understand that answer, you understand something most private island buyers learn the expensive way. The price tag was never the product. The price tag was the bait. So let's start where the real spending begins. Not the day you buy the island, but the day you try to build something on it. So here's the first thing nobody mentions in the drone footage. Before you build a single wall, you need water, power, and materials on a piece of land that has none of the three. That's the invisible infrastructure tax, and it starts multiplying costs before construction even begins. Take something as basic as a 2,000 square foot house. On the mainland, that's a $300,000 to $500,000 build. Standard contractor, standard supply chain, trucks roll up, done. Put that same house on a Caribbean island, and you're looking at $500,000 to $1.1 million for the same square footage. Same drywall, same windows, same roofline. What changed isn't the house. What changed is everything around it. Every bag of cement, every 2x4, every roll of copper wire has to arrive by barge. That's not a delivery fee, that's a shipping operation. Weather delays it. Tides delay it. And when a storm rolls through, your entire building schedule just becomes a suggestion. Then there's labor. Contractors don't commute to an island. They live there for the duration of the build, which means you're not just paying wages, you're paying for housing, feeding, and transporting an entire crew for months. You're not building a house, you're running a temporary logistics company that happens to end in a house. And that's before you deal with water. No island hooks up to a municipal line. You either drill for fresh water and hope, or you install a desalination system that turns seawater into something drinkable. Either way, that's a standalone utility plant you now own and maintain, for a property the size of a large garage. Same story with power. No grid to plug into means generators, or solar with battery backup, sized for a full-time operation, not a weekend house. Now layer in insurance because you built all of this in a hurricane belt. Coverage on island property runs 2 to 4% of the insured value every single year. On a $3 million build, that's $60,000 to $120,000 annually, just so a storm doesn't erase what the barge has spent 6 months hauling in. So add it up. Double the construction cost of the mainland, a private utility grid you have to build from scratch, and an insurance bill that resets every single year, whether a storm hits or not. That's the construction phase. That's not even the part that bleeds you slowly. Because here's the number that changes everything. Owning a private island runs $84,000 to $310,000 a year in ongoing costs. Not once, every year. And that's the modest version. The luxury tier, the kind with a proper dock and a helipad and a wine cellar that needs its own dehumidifier, that's $500,000 a year and up, just for upkeep, staffing, and security. Let's start with staff, because an island doesn't take care of itself. Genuinely, it doesn't. Leave it empty for 6 months and the tropics will reclaim it. Vines through the porch, roof full of leaves. The whole place starts looking like nature's storage unit. So you hire a caretaker. Part-time, local, checking on things and running the generator. That's $24,000 to $36,000 a year. Full-time, living on site, actually maintaining it? $48,000 to $60,000. And that's one person. Most islands need 2 or 3. Then there's how you actually get there, because a private island isn't private if you can't reach it. You need a boat. Buying one runs $50,000 to $250,000 depending on size, and then every year after that, budget 10% of what you paid, just in repairs, port fees, and fuel. On a $150,000 boat, that's $15,000 a year before you've gone anywhere fun. Want to skip the boat traffic entirely? Helicopter or seaplane charters start at $2,000 an hour, one way. Now add the insurance number back in, because it doesn't go away after construction. It follows the asset. 2 to 4% of the insured value every single year for as long as you own it. On that same $3 million build, $60,000 to $120,000 annually. Not a one-time premium. A permanent line item that scales with the price of the place you were so proud to have finished building. So stack it. Staff, $48,000 to $60,000. Boat upkeep, $15,000 to $25,000. Insurance, $60,000 to $120,000. And that's before food, fuel deliveries, and the fact that every appliance on the island corrodes faster than it would on the mainland because you're living inside a salt fog. Add it up, and you're at $150,000 to $200,000 a year in recurring costs before anything breaks. And that's the paradox nobody puts in the brochure. The island itself might have cost you $600,000 to buy, but running it for 5 years can cost you $750,000 to $1 million more. You didn't buy an asset, you bought a subscription. It just happens to have sand. There is a way to make the math work. It involves geography, and it involves splitting the bill with people you actually like. We'll get to both. So here's the paradox. Stated plainly, a private island is the one asset that costs you money, whether you use it or not. You don't visit for 8 months. The vegetation doesn't wait politely. It reclaims the dock, it reclaims the generator shed, it reclaims the $40,000 you spent clearing it in the first place. Genuinely. A house in the suburbs can sit empty and just be quiet. An island left alone is actively working against you. And that's the part the brochure photo can't show. The photo is a still frame. Ownership is a recurring charge. $84,000 to $310,000 a year in taxes, insurance, staff, and transport. And that's before you're in luxury territory, where owners are routinely writing $500,000 checks annually just to keep the lights on and the grounds from turning into a jungle set piece. So does the math ever work? It does, but not the way the pitch sells it. Here's escape hatch number 1, geography. A private island in Greece, Croatia, Scotland, or the coast of Maine runs 40 to 60% cheaper to maintain every single year than the same island in the Caribbean or the Pacific. Not because the land is cheaper, because the climate isn't trying to destroy your building. No salt fog eating your wiring. No hurricane season pricing your insurance at 4% of the property's value. Cooler water, slower corrosion, calmer weather. The island's still an island. It just stopped being a war zone. Escape hatch number 2, you stop buying it alone. This is the one nobody puts on the postcard, because it kills the fantasy of the solitary owner on his own private kingdom. But run the numbers. A $177,000 a year island in the Bahamas, split 3 ways, comes out to $59,000 per owner. That's a nice boat. That's not a bankruptcy. Split the deed, split the insurance, split the caretaker's salary, and split the weeks you actually use it. The island doesn't get smaller, the bill does. So here's the actual verdict. The private island isn't a bad asset, it's a mispriced expectation. People budget for the purchase and forget they just signed up for a subscription with a hurricane deductible. The fix isn't finding a cheaper island, it's finding a colder one and finding people to split it with. Do both, and $150,000 to $200,000 a year in dead weight turns into something closer to $50,000 to $70,000 shared 3 or 4 ways. That's not a fantasy anymore, that's a line item. That's the real economics of owning a private island. It was never about the price tag on the listing. It was always about what happens every single year after you sign. If this kind of breakdown is useful, that's basically the whole channel. Numbers on the assets people romanticize, minus the brochure. Subscribe if you want more of that, and drop a comment with the next asset you want taken apart like this.